Eyal Baruch Levi B here from Man Uprising. Now, I know many of you are used to me saying Defiant Spirit, and Defiant Spirit is still part and parcel of my life. It's the work that I do in counseling, in logotherapy, and coaching individuals, and I also work with businesses, organizations, and consulting, and that will just continue onwards. But I do have other more than pet projects, passions in life. And one of them is my newest venture, Man Uprising. I'm deeply passionate about it. So you'll hear me sort of switching back and forth. Now, Man Uprising is for men rising up in the second half of life. And I've been challenged a couple times, but B, what about the women? Why don't you do something for them, offer something to them? I am. It's called Man Uprising because if you have a husband or a boyfriend or a father or a son or a friend and they're a man, if they can rise up, particularly, not only, but particularly in the second half of life, and truly leave behind boyhood. Nobody wants to be with a boy, and become a man. And what the deepest level of masculinity, not toxic masculinity, but not emasculated masculinity, a healthy, robust, solid man is what you want in your life for your son or your boyfriend or your father or your husband, whoever it is. So this, women, is for you. You're welcome. And you don't have to be a man to watch these. Again, you'll learn. I learn when I watch Ariella, my wife's videos, and she speaks exclusively to women, right? Her groups are for women. And as she's become a stronger woman, I've reaped the benefits. As the women around her grow in strength, their male counterparts grow. And so we all do this work. And yeah, there are times where we should and will come together to do this work together. But again, Man Uprising. And that's what I want to talk about. So in this conversation, I just want to talk big picture about what it means to rise up in the second half of life, why we need this. Because every day, all day, I sit with men and women, but mostly men nowadays, in these chairs behind me. If you're just listening, I'm pointing to my chairs, not that hard to imagine, where I'm counseling, I'm coaching, could be executive coaching with a CEO, it could be, logotherapy, helping somebody find meaning in their life, it could be grief counseling, sort of my bread and butter and the training I came out of. But whatever it is, especially when it comes to men and second half of life, define it however you want. Carl Jung defines it 40 onwards. Doesn't matter how you define it. You know it when you're in it. And when you're in it, the rules of the road change. There's not an exact moment that happens, but if you're in the second half of life, and particularly if you're a man, you start realizing that the goals of the morning of life, as I call it sometimes, the morning and afternoon, or the first half of life and the second half of life, the goals have changed. The rules have changed. The ways, the rhythms, the vibes, what attracts you has changed. What your reason for being has changed. And yet, in the words of Carl Jung, what worked in the first half of life, the morning, will not only not work in the afternoon or the evening of life, the second half of life, they will begin to fail us. Example, most men are taught in the morning of life is to be more, they must do more, especially earn more. How many guys do I counsel, including myself, who conflate self-worth with net worth? I'm not saying finances, money doesn't have a place. Absolutely, unequivocally, it does in the first half and it does in the second half. The question becomes, fellas, is the money a means, like it's called? That's why we call it a means. That's why it's called currency. Currency is, right, a process of electricity, of movement. It's not called an end. Money is never an end. When somebody says, yeah, but I need $1 million, I'll say, but what for? Right? I need $10 million to retire. But what for? You might. I'm not saying you don't. But my financial planner, Michael Feiner, check him out. I want to get paid for this. Michael Feiner is an amazing financial planner. And whenever we talk, he reminds me of my why. We never start with how much money do I have and how much money do I want? No, it's where do you want to be in 20 years, in 10 years, in 5 years? And then we back into that. Now, it might be a $10 million need. It might be a $1 million need. It might be a $10 need. I don't know. It depends on your why. And that comes back to the rules of the road. You see, in the morning of life, all we're taught as guys is to get yours, get it now, and get more and more and more. And the more you have, the more you are. Then you come to midlife and onwards when your marriage is falling apart because you have more. You have plenty of more, whatever however you want to fill it in. You have more houses, you have more cars, you have more money in the bank, you have more power, prestige, and yet your marriage has gone south because you have been focused on more and not on her. Or again, maybe my money falls apart at midlife. I talk to a lot of guys who go through bankruptcy, 40s, 50s, or who have a professional crisis. Maybe they're fired from their job, or like me, they can no longer do the profession and they're no longer called to do as I was once a rabbi. And I went through a long period, good 5 years, wandering in the deserts, feeling like, well, I'm not making my 6-figure plus income every year, so I'm worth less. I'm worthless. I'm worth less. And I had to wander through that alone, not knowing who to turn to and how to rebuild my life in the second half with different goals and different rules and just different rhythms and ways of being in the world. So when I'm working with guys individually and now collectively with Man Uprising, we talk about, how is money a means and no longer an end? That's just one practical difference for a man who wants to rise up in the second half of life, doesn't want to keep recreating the mess of the morning of life, and doesn't want to be subservient to be a slave to his money and his things. Nothing wrong with those. But when you become a slave, nothing good with those. And then we rewrite the rules, rewrite the goals. I'm working with a gentleman right now who's getting ready for retirement. First of all, we're getting rid of the word retire, tired, to be tired, to withdraw, to disappear. The word sucks. Let's get a different word. I always say re-inspirement, next lease on life, right? The next wave of energy, whatever you want to call it. Let's move towards that. I'm going to do a whole talk on that, but let's move towards that and let's get inspired by that. And now let's back into that with all of the steps along the way. And what he's come to terms with is he was thinking he'd recreate the morning and the afternoon, and he'd have this type of goal and that type of rule. And now we're rewriting the goals and rewriting the rules, and we're filling in the second half of his life with what he wants on his terms, not the morning of life when we are filled with other people's goals, other people's rules. We go to college because they want us to go to college. We study medicine because they want us to study medicine. We go make money because they want us to make money, or they've taught us that we want to make money. Go make your money if it's your choice, if it's consciously what you want. How many guys do I sit with who say, again, I focused on climbing the ladder of success, as the old saying goes, to find out it was leaning against the wrong wall. And here's what I lost on this rung of the ladder each and every way on the climb. Second half of life is about men rising up, not in rebellion against women. Some women have said they don't like the term man uprising. Some guys have said it too. This isn't about rising up against the people around you. This is about rising up against your nature that goes back to habit, that goes back to routines. A routine has been said is a rut, and a rut is a grave with both ends knocked out. It's about rising up against my base desires, right? Guys I talk to in this chair, they tend to go to what they know. So when they're having that crisis, they just go to buying shit, or they go to sex and having, it's easier to, as a teacher of mine once said, it's easier to change your audience than your talk, right? It's easier sometimes, not all the time, to change your partner than yourself. And so these guys have to rewrite the goals and the rules. They don't want a younger version of their wife. They want a better version of themselves. And they have to defy that easy, quick fix. Go to Vegas. Nobody's watching. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Do what you want. I don't sit in moral judgment. All I sit in is a capacity to sit by the side of men, to help them decide what they want in the second half of life. What are their goals? What are their rules? How do they want to show up? And looking at the end and working in backwards to figure out who it is that they want to be when they're eulogized, when they say goodbye, and not because it's morbid or focus on our death, the opposite, because you can't live until you know what you live for, why you're here. And then once you know that, everything else falls into place. That's man uprising. Rising up against the mourning of life version of ourselves, rising up to challenge the status quo, to challenge our assumptions, our preconceptions of the way it is or who we are, to reimagine the second half, to reimagine ourselves, to show up in a way that we have chosen. And that is, make no mistake about it, an uprising, an internal uprising, a rising up against the culture, against the norms, against the status quo, against what we know, to choose to become that man that we want to be in the second half of life. That's sort of an overview of Man Uprising. I'm just going to do more videos, podcasts. I will soon have a podcast channel devoted to Man Uprising. So real quickly, if you're interested in everything I do, go to the Soul Centered Podcast. Ariella puts things there too, my wife. If you're interested in Defiant Spirit, Enneagram, and logotherapy and coaching and counseling, go to the Defiant Spirit Podcast. And if you want just Man Uprising, or you don't want to listen to Man Uprising, then go or don't go to the Man Uprising channel. I'll make that available soon. Until the next time, rise up in the second half of your life.